Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to refer to imperialism today and some of the features that I think we could point it out. There are many others. I will not treat the economic aspect, for they are in this room very specialized and respected people in the subject, and that's not my subject. But on some other features that in some way are related to the very fine intervention of my friend here, Professor. I think we all agree and know that imperialism today is not the same one that Lenin described during his time, and that there are very many differences. I'm not going to do a comparison, just to point out this fact. Some colleagues, and especially think there is a new kind of imperialism. Others, and I am among those, believe that we are having now a new phase, a different phase with some characteristics. In difference to other colleagues that I respect very much and have studied the subject, I think certainly that there is a sort of consensus and alliances among different imperialisms, which is a great big difference in comparison to other forms of imperialism at the beginning of the 20th century or the end of the 19th century. But I do not agree with those that think that therefore contradiction and antagonism between different imperialist powers is already part of history, as is no longer an issue or is not any longer a characteristic. On the contrary, I think there is a sort of a kind of dialectics where we can find both alliance and consensus between main powers, imperialist power, and as in a relative way, contradiction which sometimes can be stronger or not, and that is independence to a great deal, to which political powers are at a very specific moment in a very specific country or part of the world, and also because of a very specific situation that can come up. But I do think that there is a sort of, this imperialism can be called, there is a main power, it's sort of a center, and the rest of the imperialist power in relation to the center of the center has a subordinate position. Let me just remember some of the declaration of or analysis made at some years ago by Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of England, who was very clear about it. We need this central power of the United States. Of course, the United States is the center, because we benefit, we all, I mean all the imperialist power, from their role, not only politically, but particularly military. Without this central work done by the United States, who of course gets the bigger profit, but the rest of the imperialist power could not sustain themselves, could not keep profiting. Therefore, this kind of sort of agreement which benefits everybody. And Tony Blair also said, after the situation with terrorism, that we sort of have about 20 years now in our favor to do more or less what we want in the world to improve our power and to improve our domination of whatever should be arriving in the world. It is a characteristic since colonialism, and of course afterward, neo-colonialism and imperialism at any time, to devaluate the oppressed, or those they want to oppress. This is a key characteristic, and I think this is one of the points I wanted to underline today here with you, we can keep on going to doing an analysis of this point. I will be pointing out some of the issues that seems to me very important. Just small reference to the colonial period in Latin America and how the Indians were considered not human beings, but like monkeys, or an inferior kind of race and incapable of reasoning. And therefore, so goes the philosophy, because it was a philosophy at the time. Therefore, the philosophy goes that it is natural to control them and to dominate them. Consider people also as not civilized, of a lower civilization, of a state of being savage or barbarian, and therefore the kind of domination, which of course become kind of oppression, are of course very well argumented and justified. More recently, the idea of values linked to different civilization. Therefore, the Western, the so-called Western values, because I refuse the concept, but the so-called Western values are superior. And we have, therefore, the imperialist Western power, the right. Moreover, we have the duty to impose those values. This is also linked to the idea of considering the United States the country, the land that has the mission to impose its domination over the world because of its superiority in reasoning, in values, in civilization. The chosen land, the chosen country with the message for the whole humanity, and the whole humanity sort of being thankful and following the guide that God has given to us. This, it has been written by many theoretical, which just justify this behavior. More recently still, of course, we have liberty. I remember when I was adolescent and very young, this idea of liberty was essential for domination of the United States against my continent and my country. More recently still, we have democracy. And in the most recent year, reasons for oppression, for controlling, for intervention, for breaking the principle of non-interference, of breaking the principle of autodetermination of people, then we have the terrorism, we have drugs, we have the idea of having sort of arms of mass destruction, and so forth. Now, one of the points that seems to be very interesting is that more or less up to the last 20 years, the idea was that all these justifications were to justify the right to break the principle or even the law, but not the rejection of the principle of the law, but the right to break it. Now what we are facing is, together with that position, is the idea that many reasons, this one and some others, give basis for the suppression of the principle of itself, give reason to the idea that above the law, even that of the United Nations, there are some ethical, moral laws which are above the law that the people of the United Nations agree upon, and have therefore the moral right, not only the moral right, but the moral duty to intervene, to suppress the principle. Remember again Tony Blair saying that ethical war. So this is a very important concept, ethical war. Then another principle was created, the idea of failed states. Failed states, therefore, when they are failed states, and this was with the Bush administration, lose the right of sovereignty. It's not that I have the right to break sovereignty. It's that because of their bad behavior of failing state, the principle is no longer valid for them. It's obsolete. And more recent, Mr. Obama and Hillary Clinton have created the smart power. Yes? So in order to preserve the United States sympathy towards the United States all over the world, instead of doing like Bush, like these toros in the corridas, the Spanish in Europe, yes, instead of that, they create the idea of smart power. We are at the head of the group, we lead the group, we dominate the group, or a group of countries, and people will come behind me and will interfere, will make aggression, will do whatever we think should be done within a specific country. The right to interfere, the humanitarian right, which is not a right, it's a moral principle above the law, above everything else, protect, even ONGs are on that. And finally, the image of a posse is a very important image. Please don't forget the posse. It's an image that comes from the Western, the movies in the Western, and of course it's based on the real Western. The posse, where the sheriff organized the group that goes together with him against evil, yeah? So, the United States is the sheriff of the posse. It should organize posses every time that is necessary and to act above law in any case. So, I agree with my colleague that spoke that the solidarity among people is essential. But most of the people do not even know how their countries are voting. I don't want to be mentioning here, but we shouldn't forget some of the countries that did vote against Libya and now voted now against Syria. And some of them are the very third world people. And they don't care about what the future is bringing. They care about their specific situation now and what benefit they can obtain from following the United States. And there is another power, which is the media control, so nobody knows the truth about, or at least it would take such a long time for the truth to break through that when it does, the whole process, the whole plan of imperialism has been carried out. I think we are really living one of the most terrible moments in humanity. Thank you.